Oh God, Jesus H, motherfucking Christ! Welcome everybody to Chillin and Millin. I'm
Well,
not.
that was a hell of an intro.
I'm not even including those bits at the beginning. It's just going to start with me swearing, and you can all fill in the gaps. Oh my word! Oh yeah, no, this is a magic-based podcast hosted by three people who, honestly, the last 4 months of Magic have been a bit of a blur for all of us. It's just been anger and bannings, and that's been about it, really.
Yeah, my entire life has just been like a mixture of my opponent making far too many land drops and then me dying. I don't know what happened.
What happened is someone decided that landfall was an incredibly good idea going into a standard that's based around ramping, and had loads of really good, like, I will say, like, the landfall synergies are great. At the same time, when you've got a system where landfall exists in the exact same standard as Azusa Lost but Seeking, someone at R&D's got to be fired.
Is Azusa even still in this?
Yeah, Azusa was in M21. Azusa was in the last damn set.
She's seen no play.
No, she was in the Omnath deck.
No, she wasn't.
I swear she was in the Omnath deck.
No, she wasn't.
I don't know what was in the Omnath deck. All I saw was Lotus Cobra, Omnath, and Anger.
No. It was like Lotus Cobra, Omnath, Scoot Swab.
Oh yeah, I've seen
that. You played Cultivates. You played the stupid Titan thing. And then you played the bloody Uro. Then you played the stupid Genesis. Genesis Ultimatum.
Oh, bloody hell! Yeah,
Genesis. To hit an Ugin.
Is Genesis Ultimatum any good in any other format? Like, I've not even seen the ultimatums in Commander, and I would have thought that would be where they are. Sam, are they any good in Commander?
Never seen them. I mean, to be fair, I haven't played like physical Commando in like so long. So
you played it with me, and we got to sit. We all played it together. A little bit.
Yeah, we did.
True. Yeah, true.
Oh yeah, other human beings.
Yeah. We existed with other people for a little while before you guys moved back to the #1 coronavirus hotspot in the entire country.
Woo! Yeah.
Man. I know this is a magic-based podcast, and we'll introduce ourselves in a second. But I will say I quite love the irony of the lowest coronavirus alert in this country being medium.
Yes, just medium.
That's just amusing to me. Anyway, Chillin and Millin. So my name's Hugh. Yeah, no, what have I been doing? I've been playing Standard a bit. Then I realized Standard wasn't fun, and I stopped playing Standard. Yeah, the problem is, like, all my good decks got rotated out. Like, a lot of the good stuff in them got rotated out, and so I'm like, okay, what have I got left that's like anywhere near competent? And I'm like, okay, Shrine Tribal, so Tribal, and somewhat my mid-range blue-green deck, because I was the bad guy. At which point I was like, okay, I'm definitely not playing Omnath in this because I just don't want to touch that with a barge pole. But I've got the Euros, I've got all the other stuff. At which point, Wizards turned around and went, Euros banned, and I'm like, okay, well, do I just build the Omnath deck? That's what everyone else is building. And they turned around and went, Omnath's banned. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry it's healthy for the system, but at the same time, I literally have no standard decks now. So see you all later.
Yeah, but it's not. They've kind of decimated it, and it's probably a good thing they took Omnath behind the back of the shed and shot it twice in the head as soon into the standard format as they have, because people probably haven't, like, if you've gone and paid for the wild cards, then you've gone and paid for the wild cards, right? But if you're grinding for them, you probably haven't managed to grind for a full set of Omnath yet.
No, especially considering it is a ridiculously mythic and rare hungry deck.
Yeah,
I do like I am rather enjoying Omnath's new title to me, which is Omnath Locus the fuck out of here.
Well, I mean, like, you literally cannot play him on any format in Arena anymore, apart from Historic Brawl. But honestly, who plays fucking Historic Brawl?
You want to play Historic Brawl with me? Who are you, and how did you get in my house?
Stop waving those Omnaths around me.
Yeah, I was going to say, get away from me. But who are you two kind strangers?
So my name's Will. I'm the podcast L1 judge. I'm mainly liking of the constructed formats, and because the constructed formats have kind of like dropped off the face of the fucking earth,
Died.
I've
Just
been
use the word died.
died. Yes, dead. I've been playing an awful lot of historic recently because
boy.
it turns out
No.
historic's actually fun. Who would have thought?
And the other one?
I don't have a title as cool as I'm a judge. So I'm the podcast's What Can You Do with Magic Cards? God. You can put them in the fire.
Mate, in the nicest possible way, I wouldn't refer to being an L1 judge as being cool.
No, I really wouldn't.
I don't mean that disparagingly or anything. It's just one of those ones where it's like, man, that's really cool, man. You're a level 1 judge, and then you look at like the rest of the world who's like normal, and you're like, oh no. It's like going, oh, dude, I pulled I pulled one of the expedition lands from the collector's boosters. Oh man, that's so wicked. Turn around to the people who are having sex and like have girlfriends. You're like, ah. I say this to two people in the podcast who are literally in committed relationships, and I'm the one who's not, and it's like, I'm the weird, nerdy one, apparently, and I even shaved my beard and everything. I look normal a bit at the moment.
On today's podcast,
Hugh.
life advice from Hugh.
No, don't take life advice from me.
You don't need a girlfriend, you just need Uros. Is that it, Hugh?
Yeah, but it would be, but unfortunately, girlfriends don't get banned out of formats.
No, true.
Man, how many cards just died for the sins of other cards? Because, like, I know Uro was a menace, but at the same time, I don't think he was that oppressive. Like, he
kind of was, though.
I feel like everyone got Stockholm syndrome for Uro because he was just in everything, and so it was like, yeah, okay, it's Uro, sure.
Yeah.
But he definitely died for Omnath's sins.
I think the problem is, I don't even think he realistically died for Omnath's sins. I think the problem with Oro was like a big, and it was also kind of the problem with Omnath as well, which is like when you're playing a ramp deck. Let's say you're playing Tron in Modern, right?
No.
What's Tron meant to die to?
It's supposed to die to like quick aggro decks / control decks, right?
Well, no, control decks do historically do really badly against Tron.
Man, I just beat
right.
Tron by killing its lands. Like, I don't know what meta beats Tron. I just play main board Field of Ruin and Ghost Quarter because I'm that guy.
Well, yeah, but that's the point, right? You're actually hitting the nail on the head. It's meant to be like these quick, low to the ground aggro matchups. Like, historically, Burn is a terrible matchup for Tron in Modern. And Burn tends to be a terrible matchup for kind of the ramp decks in Legacy. What Uro and what Omnath did was they gave life. They gave you card advantage, so you just couldn't kill them with aggro. Like I think they both needed to die. Also, recursion, yeah.
This is the thing I think everyone forget. Like, say, like, tell me if I'm wrong here. We like, no, we all remember this, Hugh. But it's like, to me, everyone was like, man, Uro's such an effective ramp card, and I'm sat there going, he comes back from the graveyard. Like, are we all forgetting that that was supposed to be his gimmick? His gimmick was supposed to be he keeps breaking out of the underworld to ravage your deck. But it's like, everyone was like, no, man, he draws you cards and ramps here. And I'm like, I'm dealing with him for the 5th time this game. Like, my opponent just my opponent just exiled 2 Uros to his 3rd Uro. And it's like, what is this?
Yeah, what is life right now? You're completely right. And like, it just did too much right. It prevented it. First of all, it replaced itself. It ramped you. It buffed you against aggro decks, which are the decks that are meant to be able to kill this type of deck, particularly if you're essentially burdening around and doing not much on turn 3. And then eventually it would come and kill you.
I don't get why it gained you the 3 life. I honestly don't get it why it gained you the 3 life. It was such a weird addition because it's like, okay, draws you a card, that's the blue. Can play an additional land, that's the green. Gauge of 3 life. I'm sorry?
That's the colourless.
Yeah. Apparently so. Which does explain why Croxers just got discard a card, black, deal 3 damage, red. There's no colourless.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been you gain 3 life. It's like, I'm sorry, it's a Rakdos card. Why am I gaining life?
Croxer isn't even a guaranteed deal 3 damage. It's a deal 3 damage if you discard a land or nothing at all, right? Like, so occasionally it's just 2 mana, they get to discard a card of their choice. Occasionally it's just a 2 mana Raven's Crime.
I play Croxer in Modern, right? There is a copy of Croxer in my Jund deck, but it's in there for recursion-based practices, because late in a game, if I'm playing up against another hyper-removal heavy matchup, it's really, really useful just to be like, oh yeah, the Croxer, and just start swinging in with a 6/6, because usually in Modern, the 6/6 is big enough to beat pretty much anything your opponent's placed out in front of you. But at the same time, like, very early in the game, he doesn't have the impact that Uro does. Uro is a turn later, but does significantly more, because even if you do not draw a land to play the extra land with Uro, you're still
ahead.
A land and gain 3 life. The amount of times in Standard I've been winning against someone and they've managed to just start stalling me out by just playing an Uro every turn and just being like 3 life, 3 life, 3 life.
Completely. Like, I played a lot of Croxer because the deck I've been playing in Historic is the Rakdos Pyromancer deck. So
when I saw in Historic, I'm like, Young Pyromancer's Historic. I was like, yeah, I know who'll be playing that.
Yeah, it's me. Well, it's a brilliant deck. You play like 4 of the Stitches Supplier to mill your own graveyard. You play 4 Young Pyromancer. You play 4 Dreadhorde Arcanist. And then you play, like, what's the split cards resurrection spell for CMT2 or less? Claim to Fame.
That's the one.
You play 4 Claim to Fame. You play 4 Village Rights.
I was surprised that Claim to Fame turned up for a while and then kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. That card was like a £3 card at some point, and it was seeing play in actual Modern Jund for a time, because it's like 1 black, get back my Tarmogoyf, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. Yeah. It's a really good card, and then just disappeared off the face of the earth, and I'm like, oh, okay. Modern Horizons ruins everything, I suppose.
Yeah, but you also, in that deck, you also play 4 Croxer because it's perfect. And honestly, you don't slam it on turn 3. You don't slam it on turn 2. You slam it on turn 3 when you can slam it, and then in response to its trigger, cast Village Rights and sacrifice it. And then you play Lurrus as your companion. Eventually, you get Lurrus back, and you just continuously recast it from your graveyard for 2 mana to make them discard cards. Like,
so
okay,
yeah.
but
it doesn't. It's a much more offensive card than Uro is, because you have to be using it proactively. Whereas Uro, you can just cast it defensively forever. I've had Uro players in Historic on 2, and they've gone back up to 18, and I've just not been able to kill them through that Uro.
Because life is a shit, and then you die.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, because I was thinking about like the ban list, because the emergency ban list just kind of happened Saturday, by the way, banning on Monday, and so I was kind of thinking about bannings recently, and I kind of stopped to think about it, and I decided to do a bit of research to figure out, like, okay, well, how many cards have actually been banned? And I found a weird, interesting statistic, which is kind of a bit of a strange one, which is 50% of all cards that have ever been banned in Standard have been printed in the last, I think it's 2 years.
Yeah, it's the last year. I've seen the statistic as well.
Yeah, and I'm like, I stopped and I was like, it can't be that many. And I stopped and genuinely started to think about it. And I'm like, yeah, well, Eldraine was Eldraine was just under a year ago as well. And I'm like, hang a minute, Oko, Into the Wilds just got banned, Uro as well, yeah, Lurrus, okay. And then I just started naming them off, and I'm like, oh my god, yeah, loads of these cards that were already printed. And I realized I don't know what's bloody happened. And I've always thought that Standard's problem is that Standard players gravitate towards the deck they think is doing best. And I feel this is an issue with any format that's got a very limited pool that then rotates over. If you're playing that format, you want to win. Because your format changes every 3 months. Because the moment new cards get injected, some decks just die, some decks suddenly get created. So the moment you're playing it, you're like, okay, what is the best deck? Or at least people will think, okay, what's the best deck that I can play right now? And people will just gravitate to whatever that deck is. And I think for the last 3 weeks, it was just Omnath. Omnath was just the best deck in the format. And so everyone, including the pros, just gravitated towards it. And everyone just played it. And I also feel there's a major problem in Standard right now if the broken card in Standard is a 4-color legendary.
Yeah.
Like fucking hell. What's broken? Is it a 2-mana planeswalker? No, 3-mana planeswalker? No, what is it? 4-color legendary that consistently comes out turn 4. Are you fucking kidding me? Lotus Cobra's a bitch, man.
Like, I've seen 2 possible arguments to explain this, because I agree with you. Like, Standard is and has been a mess for a while. And I think we can all agree it's genuinely because of the increased power levels of the sets.
You want to sell the sets, so you have to print powerful cards. But the problem is you print powerful cards into a format, and then occasionally they will just crack it. Because you go back to looking at something like Battle for Zendikar, which was the first set they printed that was supposedly underpowered, and on its own in Standard, it was relatively underpowered. It was combined with the other stuff that made it broken. But then you look at stuff like Ixalan, where it's like, can you name a single card in Ixalan that really made an impact? Because I can't.
An impact in Standard or an impact elsewhere?
Kinda anywhere, really. Like, I can't really think.
Unclaimed Territory is a pretty
It does get played. It does get.
It's a multi-format all-star.
Yeah, I'll give you that. All right. So out of 2 entire sets of about 450 cards, what we're saying is that the card that saw play was a uncommon land.
I'd argue that Treasure Map is kind of a commander staple. Would you not, Sam?
Yeah, Treasure Map's good.
But I get.
Archer of Azka, the land that you pay 5 to draw a card.
Oh yeah. Sell the Wreckage saw quite a bit of. Sell the Wreckage is a
Yeah, Search for Azcanta's good. It sees a lot of play in Legacy and Modern, but it's not like it's not like anyone plays Search for Azcanta and your immediate response is, "Oh god damn it!" This is a problem. No, same with Settle the Wreckage, where it's like you swing in, you get Settle the Wreckage, and you're just like, "Yeah, no, that's my fault."
I've heard 2 arguments about the current Standard.
God.
Which is basically, the first argument is that the increased power level has been was a response by Wizards, and basically they argued that people preferred Standards where bans happen over boring sets. So these are sets like your Ixalans and your Dragon's Mazes and kind of some of your Kamigawas and stuff like that. So, sets that just don't make an impact in Standard and are considered boring to play.
Throw shit to the wall and kind of see what sticks, sort of thing.
And when you look at it past, Magic kind of periodically goes through these periods, right? Like, this is definitely not the first time we've had, like, terrible Standards. It's just probably the longest lasted one.
This has been like this since Kaladesh and Eldritch Moon, and that's a problem because those sets are 3 years old.
I kind of disagree. Like, I think Kaladesh had a mechanic problem rather than like a card problem. Because I'd argue these last couple of sets have actually been. I've really actually enjoyed the last couple of sets from like a modern point of view. It's just been certain cards in them that have been completely overpowered. Whereas Kaladesh, I'd argue, had a mechanical problem, which is energy was too hard to interact with.
I would also argue that Zendikar's got a mechanic problem in that they've introduced landfall into a system where getting lands out is super easy.
No, I kind of disagree. I think Omnath is an isolated incident. Like, I don't think there's any other landfall cards that are causing particular problems.
I mean, Lotus Cobra was in that deck, but I suppose the moment you stop, the thing is, we kind of hit the point now where it's what I mean, man, what are the ramp decks just going to ramp into? At which point I turn around and look at my Ugin again, and I'm like, well, that's still in standard, and it's only 8 mana, and it's and it literally sees play in frigging modern Tron, so it's good enough for Tron. It's good enough for standard.
I agree. Ugin is a very good card, but why is Tron not the best deck in modern?
Because every time someone attempts to get too good at Tron, the Magic community as a whole accepts that it's time for another lynching. No, I'm kidding.
No, because legitimately, there hasn't really ever been a piece banned out of Tron, right? So something must be keeping it down. And I'll tell you exactly what it is. They don't always have it.
No. They don't always have it. Just against other people, they don't have it. Against you, they always have it.
Yes, against you, yes. Against me, they always fucking have it.
Against you, dear listener, and against us, every single time it's turn 3, it's like, man, I don't have Tron. Oh, there it is. And then the Khan comes out. But against everyone else, it's like, man, you'd be sitting there and you're like, oh, what turn is it? Oh, it's like turn 8. And you're like, oh, what have you got? Two towers and a plant. And it's like, ooh, unlucky, man. It's like, yeah, no, they're sandbagging the bottom of my deck. And it's like, man, can I play against you? Yeah, so you sit down, they immediately draw into everything they need. It's like, oh, fuck.
Hashtag just Tron things.
Yeah.
But that's the point. Without the Euros, the actual threat density in the Omnath deck is much diminished. It makes, with Omnath and Uro being gone, it makes removal a much more viable option to deal with the Lotus Cobras and the Scoop Mobs as something that might get out of hand, and makes it much more vulnerable to removal, much more vulnerable to aggro, right? I don't think, realistically, Lotus Cobra is a problem, because ramp's fine as long as you have something to ramp into.
Man, is Omnath any good in Commander? I think he's a full-color commander, right? And that usually, Commander's been crying out for more 4-color commanders for a while now. I'm just checking on EDH Rack. Oh yeah, he's the top commander this week.
It's because everybody needs to find out something to do with their copies.
Yeah, everyone's like, shit, what do I do with this card now?
And the past month, in fact, he's got he's really nice in terms of what he does. I think it's really flavoursome. At the same time, it's just such a really weird card. It's just kind of really weird that so much has been added to him. I suppose the idea is he's a 4-color card, so you should get stuff for making it 4-colored. But
why does what's a 4-color legend draw a card?
I don't know.
Why?
Because blue. Because blue. It's because it is, honestly, I think it is because blue. Every single ability on him is represented by one of his colors. Okay, draw a card. Blue. Okay, when it first card into the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. White. Okay, if it's the second time, you get mana. Green. Okay, if it's the third time, you deal damage. Red.
I mean, yeah, but you don't just because something has just because something has blue in it doesn't mean you have to tag draw a card onto it. I play Vapor Snag. You don't need to tag draw a card onto Vapor Snag to make it feel more blue.
You know that's not true. Remember, if it's blue, it draws a card. Unwritten rule 0 of blue cards. If it don't draw a card, it might as well be black.
Oh dear. I
mean, where's the line, right?
Well, with my jokes or with Omnath?
I mean,
I don't know, man.
I don't know,
I think I'll go back to your argument about the idea of people liking a slightly less boring standard, but taking the bans. And I'd say, yeah, I'd kind of accept that if the standard was like this for about 6 months. The fact that it's been like this for about 3 years, I think makes people kind of sick of the bannings. The fact that every time a new set comes out, some card becomes a problem, and it's kind of happened every single time a new set's come out, really, and that's kind of an issue when you think about it.
I remember that didn't have a problem is the set before Zendikar, M21.
Yeah, M21.
Ikoria.
Yeah, M21's fine. No, Ikoria had Luros. Ikoria had the companion.
Oh yeah, shit. No, that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
because so we're working backwards. Zendikar has Omnath. M21, as Sam said, fine. Set before that, Ikoria, the Companions. Set before that, Theros. Problem, you had Uro and the Titans, and Underworld Breach to a lesser extent, which lest we forget, broke Legacy.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Set before that was, I believe, set before that was War of the Spark, and the less said about War of the Spark, the better in terms of cards that broke standard. I mean, I think M20 was a bit before. I'm not actually sure.
I can't remember.
I think it was War then M20 before then, wasn't it? Because it was you had the two Ravnicas then M20. I think I like to say, or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think. Anyway, I'm not 100% sure. Either which way, M20 had Field of the Dead.
And did we have Golos as well?
Yes, it also had Golos.
Oh my god, yeah, Golos got banned.
Yeah, Golos got absolutely banned. Golos got banned super hard. Ravnica Allegiance and Ravnica Guilds of Ravnica were fine. They had some cards that got played in powerful decks, but they were fine. They would. I'd argue those are the last couple of sets that were genuinely okay, with the exception of that M21. M21 and those two Ravnica sets. The rest of them, they've all had problem cards. Because then you've got stuff like we forgot to even mention Eldraine and the Oko incident.
Yeah, let's not talk about Eldraine. Fires of Ascension, Lucky Clover, which is obviously now just got banned.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm honestly surprised that got banned because the fact that it was Omnath, it's Omnath Adventures. So I'm surprised that considering that, because we were talking about like Kaladesh having a mechanics problem. Adventures are literally only on Eldraine, so you'd think that the adventure deck that's been constantly in standard and no one's ever complained about it, the moment it got given Omnath, it got annoying. You'd think they just ban Omnath and just let the adventure deck go back to being the normal adventure deck, wouldn't you?
I think the problem was Omnath. It wasn't just Omnath Adventures. It was Omnath Ramp and then Omnath Adventures.
Right.
They were actually two distinct decks.
Yeah, which just makes me think: why did Adventures get double nerfed? I honestly that was honestly. Go on.
The argument they gave was even when they looked at what they suspected the post-banning meta was going to be, Adventures was still clearly going to be the best deck by far, probably because like you could still ramp incredibly easy in there. Because if you put Lotus Cobra in it, then you start doubling up on what's the adventure that gets you land?
I know the one you mean. It's the giant.
Oh, the beanstalk giant.
And then you can play Fairy of Wishes to go get a Ugin or something like that, or you can play, or you can just find one of Ugins in the deck.
I would argue without the introduction of Lotus Cobra, that deck was still fine. Like I can see their argument. I really. But at the same time, I think they're trying to preempt standards because they know that there is, in the nicest possible way, I think they're a little bit scared because what they've done before is they've banned a card, despite the fact other people have said you need to ban this card though, and they've gone, nah, it's fine, we'll ban this one but not that one, and we'll see what happens. And then the card they've been told to ban is still a problem. And so I think they've probably tried to. I suppose they've tried to not deal with that and be like, okay, we know that Omnath Adventures is a problem, so we're going to ban Omnath, and just in case we're going to ban the Lucky Clover. My response being, Adventures was fine until Omnath came along. It was fine. It was a good deck, but it was fine. Just let it happen. If it turns out it is bad, you just ban it later. I don't like preemptive banning for something you don't know about, because I get the feel, because I genuinely think that Wizards are sometimes genuinely too trigger happy on standard bans right now. And I think standard players have gotten way too used to just a deck they don't like and they just demand a banning. And sometimes the banning is just not needed.
Okay, so I have 2 points here. I don't think of the Clover ban as like a proper ban. I kind of see it as like a forced rotation, just like they want almost like a complete slate clean of all the previous very tier 1 decks, and they're letting like a new standard breakthrough.
Which is weird to me in that respect, because you are literally looking at some people and going, I know your deck was tier 1 and it was fine, but we just decided that deck doesn't get to exist
Like,
anymore. Not because it's broken, but just because we don't want it to exist anymore. Go away. And I'm like,
whether that,
is it because it was unfun? Because it wasn't unfun to play against. It was fine. Like, the two reasons you ban things is they're too powerful or they're unfun, and it was neither of those. I get their reasoning. I don't accept it.
like, I kind of disagree that it was unfun. I thought it was incredibly unfun, but that's kind of not the point. The second point I wanted to make was, I have completely forgotten it now. What were your
That's
2
all right.
points again?
I can't remember either. We'll get back to it. But yeah, we live in this weird world at the moment where I know R&D are doing their jobs. I do, or at least I bloody hope R&D are doing their jobs. I am a cynical enough man to potentially have this little thought in the back of my head that just says they're letting problematic cards through the cracks to sell packs in the first couple of weeks, and then they know they're going to ban them. And I know it's a super cynical thought for me, but it's like, have Wizards recently done anything to make me think otherwise? I don't know. They printed the Walking Dead cards, and that's certainly a mistake. And we'll get to those later.
I mean, I thought it was just kind of accepted that that's what they were doing. That they just printed a super powerful card and then said, we'll ban it at some point, probably. But until then, money.
I personally, I don't think it's that. I think Wizards go
naive.
through. No, okay. I've actually got historical precedent for this, right? Wizards go through periods of innovation and caution, right? You get stuff like, obviously, like when they first started Magic, it was a massive period of innovation. That's where you get stuff that are so broken, like the Moxers and stuff like that. And then you go into like a very, very kind of cautious period.
Arabian
Nights, Antiquities, and stuff like that, which has some very broken stuff in it, but overall they're very homelands.
Yeah, not broken because they were specifically designed to be broken, but broken because later on they interact specifically with certain cards that get printed later. When you've got 25 plus year old card game, a card that you printed 20 years ago is going to interact with the cards you print today.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, completely. But then you go back into periods of experimentation again. You get stuff like Necropotence. Then you go back into a period of recession, of like Caution, which is like your invasion block. Then you get crazy stuff like fucking Urza's block. Can we acknowledge that Urza's block exists?
Urza's block was fine. It only took half my leg.
Yes, exactly. Then you go back into like recession. Then you go back into like innovation, and that would be like your Mirrodin blocks and stuff like that, and your Ravnica blocks. Then you go back into like a creative, like they go through cycles of doing stuff like this. This just happens to be and I actually think why we're all so tired is they've actually just gone through one of these cycles just really, really fast, which is they did loads of innovation around. Well, they had a lull around. Return to Zendikar, where Battle for Zendikar, apart from the Eldrazi.
I was going to say, Matt, here are a bunch of here's some Eldrazi. Okay, what else have you got for us? Or did you not hear earlier? We talked about the allies. I literally blanked that from my memory to the point where in this joke I even left out the fact you even said about the allies. Can you even remember what the ally mechanics were in Battle for Zendikar? Because I can't.
Rally.
Apparently, there was another one. I think it was called Cohort.
Cohort?
Yeah.
Cohort.
Right. Everyone remembers Cohort, right? That mechanic, which is literally described as the worst mechanic ever printed into Magic the Gathering, that's not banding.
I don't think I've ever heard of either of those two mechanics.
Rally, Rally, when it or another ally enters the battlefield, do a thing. Bit shit, really. Cohort, even worse, which is tap this and another amount of allies you control to do a thing. You can tell it was
bad.
You can tell it was bad when the rare for that card was a creature that was tap this and one other tapped ally and one other ally you control. Create a 2/2 zombie.
Oh dear, yeah, that
And
was.
you're like, I'm kidding. Are you kidding?
But
I'm getting rid of
It's
2 of my blocks.
overpowered!
I'm tapping 1 of my. Why do I get 2/2/2 zombies to like defend my defense? No, that would be broken. No, I wouldn't. The allies need help. Look, it's literally a bunch of Eldrazi at the door. The Eldrazi Winter's literally breaking through Modern. Look at it. It's crying. It's got anxiety.
Yes, but like, so that was a period of like going into a period of high like innovation with Kaladesh block. Then you've got Innistrad, and to a lesser extent, and the Dominaria and the first couple of Ravnica blocks.
I was going to get very defensive. You were like, to a lesser extent, and I'm like, you back off, Eldritch Moon.
No.
That was a good set, and you know it.
Dominaria, well, also Eldritch Moon. Actually, like, it was a good set, but I wouldn't call it particularly innovative. Would you?
I mean, it certainly had some cards.
Yes, it did.
Remember, there was a Lily in it, which made it into Modern and everything, and it's still over 40 quid because Legacy uses it, and whatever Legacy touches goes over 40 quid.
Is that Last Hope?
Yeah.
Oh, that isn't in Legacy. That's mainly all from Modern.
Oh, is it no longer in Legacy anymore? I'll check my prices later.
I don't ever recall seeing it in Legacy.
I'm pretty sure I saw it in Legacy, but then again, I might be having a fever dream.
Quite possibly. If it's in Legacy, Maverick or Knitfit, it doesn't count.
I'm definitely having a fever dream because friggin' Rick Grimes is on a Magic card now. So like, I'm absolutely just straight up having a fever dream.
Okay, I'll wrap this up then. So
that wasn't a poke to get you to move on. That was just a statement.
Was that not the smoothest transition ever?
But if you could.
Okay, but my point is, I feel like we are coming out of, because the rest of, like you said, the rest of Zendikar block was actually kind of, it's all right. Apart from
we've innovated warfare. That's just a nuke. Yeah, it wins. It wins games. All right, we're going to ban that out of it. All right, fine. We'll keep working on the Moab, I suppose. I'm sorry.
But you get what I mean, right? I feel at some point we are going to come out of this period of high innovation into a more settled standard. And I fully expect in a year or 2 years' time we're going to be complaining that it's boring.
In a year or two's time, I'm going to be complaining about the fact that D&D is now part of the Magic universe. And I don't know why that even annoys me. It just kind of does.
It majorly annoys me.
We've got the D&D universe is coming in instead of the core set. All right, fine. I suppose you need to network. You've got the one which is set in the Frost region. Thank God we're finally getting that, I'll be honest, because I've been looking forward to like the concept of that for a while. I can't wait for them to fuck that one up too. Then we've got Hogwarts. I mean, whatever the Magic equivalent of Hogwarts is.
I cannot remember what that one is called.
Why not just make it Hogwarts?
It's basically just Hogwarts at this point, isn't it? And then
problematic authors. That's why.
Let's not talk about that one. And then Strixhaven. Then we've got 2 Innistrad blocks at the same time. Because that's going to happen.
We do, don't we?
Yeah, but it's fine because Modern gets Innistrad vampires and
Innistrad werewolves.
Yeah, I have literally no idea how that's going to work. Frankly, in my head, it's fine because Standard has been getting the crap beaten out of it for a while now. Modern Horizons 2 coming over the hill, ready to beat the shit out of Modern instead.
I'm so excited for that.
Modern's just kind of sat there, and it's like, we haven't had a banning for a while. Everything's kind of healthy. Tron's in its corner, just kind of playing with its blocks. Burn's just kind of over there, and we've dashed it with water, so it's not burning the house down. I mean, no Hogak, so everything's pretty good. You just hear a honking noise outside as you see the fucking semi truck that is Modern Horizons 2 coming towards the orphanage.
Okay. Can I just point out 2 things about Modern? Well, first of all, I'm really looking forward to Modern Horizons 2.
I love Modern Horizons, but it also made the fucking shit
I really
play.
want to draft it. I cannot.
Yes, same.
It's so much fun.
Give me more slivers. That's all I want.
Okay, but I'd like to point out 2 things that are going to make. Well, one thing is going to make Hugh very happy, and one thing is going to make both of you very happy.
Go on.
So, Hugh, I'd like to point out White Black Death and Taxes just won a modern event for the first time in forever.
Absolutely
And
brilliant.
in fact, in the top 32 of this event, White X Death and Taxes were actually the most represented deck.
Yeah, I will say this on behalf of all Death and Taxes players. When I say yeehaw,
It's probably a good thing you cut out there.
I said yeehaw boys, time to ride. As one of my as I put on my Stetson, grab green white hate bears and scream, "Who's ready to turn 3 a Night of Autumn?"
Well, so that was on the back of the new Griffin that has the rule of law on it.
Yes, I need
And
those.
And the big Thalia text. And the new 3-mana 2/2 spirit that exiles something.
It's
That card's legit.
Yeah, it's been having some nice little kind of additional editors. I like Death and Taxes is in a super good place right now. Yeehaw boys, indeed. Like, what's the second thing?
Second exciting thing, Mill is a tier 1.5 deck now.
What?
Holy shit!
Yes,
Legitimately.
Yeah, you enjoy. You're like, man, I can't wait to play with my modern deck. At which point Mill strolls in and is like, I'll take that.
I mean, jokes on them. I play Blue Moon that has 3 Emrakuls in the main deck.
I just like the idea, and I don't know why. Where it's just the GPs whenever they come back, like everyone's just kind of sat there, just kind of like enjoying and playing Mill. It's just like, oh my god, it's the Mill players, and it's just Saturday Night Fever playing as the Mill players walk in, just looking around as they just walk past people slapping their decks onto the ground. It's like, Mill, you for fuck you.
So it turns out all that deck needed was a second crab that could actually trigger off fetch lands and can block a Goblin Guide.
I love you, crab. I love you, crab.
Yeah,
I love you, crab. I love you, Zendikar. I love you, Zendikar crab tribal. Like that, you deep down, we all know that this is the greatest thing that Wizards have ever created, alongside one of the worst things Wizards have ever created. Nah, probably one of the worst things that Wizards have ever created.
I guess we've got to talk about this, haven't we?
I mean, I wasn't even going for that. I just, but you know what? You are completely correct. Will, why is there a psychopath murderer literally on one of my Magic cards? And I don't get this. I also don't get where it's like, don't worry, none of them are particularly powerful. At which point, Saturday Night Fever starts playing again as Rick Grimes walks into the building, and he's like, "Some motherfuckers, I've not been in the show for 2 years."
Hugh, have you just really wanted to watch John Travolta dance for a while?
Honestly, I've just been listening to the Bee Gees.
Oh, okay, fair. So as we've talked about extensively before, there are the secret layers, which are obviously direct from Wizards products. That, like you order them, and they've got a set number of cards in there. They were meant to be like alternate art foils or non-foils of pre-existing cards, and some of them were pretty cool, some were pretty shit. But like ultimately, you didn't have to buy them because they were alternate art versions of the cards, right? You could always just go and get back and get the original.
Can I say something in a really condescending voice?
Sure.
The product's just not for you. So go do continue.
Yes.
You know my opinion. You know my.
I know your opinion.
On the hyper expensive shiny shit that it's just like you don't have to buy it, or you don't have to make it, do you?
I mean, one of the best secret layers was the Godzilla lands.
I got really annoyed at those until I realized the exact reason why the Godzilla lands existed, and now I will go to bat for those things. You're right. Like, that's exactly what Secret Lair should have been. Hey, here's cards that are really easily available to absolutely everyone in a cool new artwork. I'm like, yeah, but this is exactly what this should be. Same with same with Kaleidoscope Killers. Hey, here's 3 5-color commanders that, to be fair, with the exception of the Ur Dragon, are kind of fine and easy to get. Have a go. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
This is why I've never really had a problem with them, to be honest with you. Like I bought the Serum Vision ones, and I still love it to this day. I almost bought the Lightning Bolt ones until problematic things happened. Like, sorry, I'm on to
let's be. We'll quick anecdote before you continue of me and Will playing some Commander a little while ago, where I pick up oh god, what's the card that I picked up? The mass Path to Exile. Winds of Abandon.
Winds of Abandon.
And I pick up Winds of Abandon, and I'm like, man, I really like this card. Will's like, yeah, I really like the card too. Yeah, and the artwork's amazing. It really is. Who drew? Oh,
no. Well,
and it's at that point I realized that one of my favorite card arts is dead to me.
Yeah. Well, I've told you about my great problem in Modern, haven't I?
Oh, go on.
I've got 2 signed Lego in the Sanctuaries by him.
Loved it. No, you don't. No, you don't. You got Kindling.
Anyway, this is all beside the point, and I will just say the Yargle Day is great. But yeah, so Wizards recently announced that they were doing. Sorry, I just love the Explore in Yargle Day, which is just the normal art of Explore, just with a tiny little Yargle just going in the front.
Yeah. Oh,
it just gets me every time.
I get the feeling that was something someone wrote on the bottom of a note as a joke, and someone forgot to rub it off. And it's like, hey, Dave, we got those Yargle drawings you asked for. I'm sorry. Yeah, those Yargle drawings. You said we were going to be doing Yargle lands. Like we even did like the Explore and shit for you. And it's like, fuck it, 40 quid. We'll just make the money. How much did it cost us? Not much. Fuck it.
I mean, I'm just happy that exists. Anyway, the original point of all of these were they were just reprints, and they didn't have like any new cards in it. And then Wizards went and announced that they'd done a collaboration with The Walking Dead.
Yeah, a dead TV program.
A TV program that I admittedly don't like a lot.
I watched quite a bit of it. I watched up until, spoiler alert, Rich Grimes stopped being in the show 2 years ago. The fact that he's in the cards is kind of confusing to me. Mm-hmm. It's almost as if the brand new Walking Dead episodes are really uneventful to the point where no one knows any of the characters.
Yeah. But the point of this was, like, it was Walking Dead collaboration, and they were going to have 5, secretly 6, mechanically unique cards that will be legal in Eternal formats. So that means it's legal in Vintage, it's legal in Legacy, and it's legal in Commander, and legal in a bunch of player-run formats like Canadian Highlander. Yeah. And so there was immediate ability. Yeah, if you wanted these cards, you had to buy them then and there. They were only going to be, I think, they was available for a week rather than a day, but you still had to buy them in that week if you wanted to play them.
Man, it could have been available for like 3 minutes for all I gave a shit. Like, keep going. Just keep going before I start getting angry.
Just keep going.
And when obviously people weren't happy about this, but first of all, like the first 2 they released weren't actually very good. Ostensibly, they were.
It was Michonne and Negan, wasn't it? Michonne's just not good. It's a 5-drop. It's a 5-drop 3/3. It's a bit garbage. And Negan's problematic because Negan is literally a psychopathic murderer with a baseball bat which murders people. And it's like, yes, in my children's card game.
So yeah, the big criticisms I've heard are you shouldn't have mechanically unique cards that are only available for a tiny little time. Wizards have actually done this once before with like a comic book promo back in the 90s, and it caused absolute outrage then.
They've done it a couple of times because they also did it with one of the event cards. If you went to a certain event in like the 1990s, you got a dragon whose name I can never even remember.
No, that was the comic book one.
No, it wasn't a comic book. It got reprinted in a comic book because it was originally only given out in an event. It was in an event. You had to go to the event to get it. And this was back when Magic was a collector's game. So people wanted all the cards and people got really angry. And so they partnered with a magazine so that if you bought the magazine, you sent off the thing that was in the magazine and you got the card from you. It annoyed people then, and it's annoying people now. Because why the hell would you have like Legacy and Vintage legal cards only available for 2 weeks and then go fuck yourself?
Yeah, like it's essentially the Mana Vault problem again, and that's got. We all remember how stupidly expensive Mana Vault was before they started reprinting it. Yep. Second problem. These were legal cards that are an outside IP, so they look. I'm pretty sure they're painted, but they're look. Humans. Well, no, they look photorealistic.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And it completely
doesn't
breaks the illusion. And I realize that's ridiculous.
I don't get why I'm literally looking at Norman Bloody Reedus. Like, it's such a fucking strange thing to me, where I'm like, here is a crap magic card that has the face of Norman Reedus on it, and it's not even an alter, it's an official damn card. Like, it's such a weird... I know why they did it. Moolah moo rolling everywhere. Like, I know exactly why they did it, but at the same time, I'm just so confused as to why, at any point, anyone with any integrity inside Wizards of the Coast looked at this and thought, we'll print hyper-realistic, non-IP cards for only a week and make them legal in formats. They could have just made them silver-bordered. And I think most people wouldn't have given a shit. Because they would just be like, because it would have just been like the Transformers ones they've got and the My Little Pony ones they've got. And it's like, oh, who cares? It's just a funny little silver bordered card that some people put in their cubes. Yeah. Who cares?
They're cool if you want to collect them. But like I say, why? Well, okay. Third problem, as Hugh's already pointed out, Negan is a
psychopathic serial killer that murders people for fun, and he's in my children's card game.
A problematic character, and people weren't happy about that, which is... kind of fair for a game that's
it's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one that confuses me.
Negan is a love-to-hate character in the Walking Dead franchise, but the problem is he's a love-to-hate character, which means that the moment you take him, like if you've got a character who's popular in a franchise and you put them in another franchise, all you're going to do is you're going to get the people that like that franchise to be like, oh, cool, my favorite character's now in another franchise. If you take a character like Negan, who's hated in the Walking Dead franchise, you love to hate him. He's essentially a wrestling heel on crack cocaine, but you then put him in another IP, you're not going to get people go, oh man, I love Negan, it's in my new children's card game. You're just going to get people going, why the fuck is this hated character in my IP?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the equivalent. It is the equivalent of someone going, "Hey, Wizards of the Coast, we've printed the new Joffrey Baratheon card," and it's like, what? Why?
Who was asking for a Joffrey Commander deck?
But like,
I mean, I kind of want to build that. Actually,
no, you don't. Stop. No, you don't. Stop taking my bad example and running with
it. Could be a monarchy deck.
But it's just a...
That's a very fair point.
I didn't get it.
I'm not.
I don't get it.
And okay, so the story goes that like this was going to be fine because none of them were particularly particularly playable, and then they previewed the Rick, which is mono white, and is he a 2/2 or 3/3? I think he's a 3/3.
I feel like he's a 3/3.
Oh, bloody hell! I literally had them up. Hang on a second.
But anyway, he's a I think he's a 3/3. When he enters the battlefield, you give all humans 3/4.
Yeah, he's unboltable.
You give all humans either a pair of either First Strike, Vigilance, or Lifelink.
Yep.
You give them a pair of those, and if you control 4 or more humans, all humans get +2/+2.
He's just good, and he's just a good card for humans. He's just straight up a good card for humans.
So it turns out there's a Legacy Humans deck. Who knew? And it turns out that with a card there's a legacy deck for everything. To be fair, there's
Crabs.
a 5-color humans deck. Don't challenge them. They will make a 5-color crabs deck. There's a 5-color legacy humans deck, and it turns out he slots right in there, and he's the perfect top end. And some people have gone and 5-0'd a legacy league with it. So it turns out that deck might be legit. So this has now suddenly become a problem.
Well, because the problem becomes in paper. Like online, who gives a crap? Because you can just go and find him, and you just get him, from traders.
No, but he will just be so expensive.
Oh, no,
it's going to be the same problem in paper.
The biggest problem in paper is that there is not going to be many of him. That if you want to play Legacy Humans in paper, go fuck yourself. Are you one of the several, the few thousand people that even bother to buy this fucking travesty of a product? Did you? Brilliant. You've got the card you need in order to 5-0 your legacy deck. Do you not? No. Enjoy sitting opposite the guy that has and losing to him because he just has better cards than you. I know Magic is a pay-to-win game sometimes at its core of its heart. And this is like the most pay to win I have seen Magic be in years. Literally being, it's not like you can go and buy this thing because like lots and lots of people have opened lots and lots of packs for it. No, it's however many people bought it over the week, and it was already a not particularly popular product because people didn't want to buy it. So all you've got now is do you have enough money to convince the people that do have Rick to give you their Rick?
Okay, so I'm going to put up a very, very, very lukewarm defense of Wizards here by repeating that statement. I do not believe it. I think it is a genuine... I think that this has been a wholehearted, like...
I will defend Wizards. They are wrong, but I will defend Wizards.
Okay, so what they basically came out and said is once all this came out, Wizards basically came out and said, look, it's not like the reserve list. We reserve the right to print mechanically identical cards later on down the line if we do believe this is becoming a problem.
So which to me smacks very much of fuck. Make an identical version of this in whatever standard set we've got coming up. Jesus fucking Christ! Because don't worry, guys. Modern Humans gets to play with the toy as well.
I don't think they'll. I think they would print it in supplemental sets over standard legal sets. I think they've learnt their.
Can you imagine Modern Horizons 2, where we get another Rick Grimes, and it's like,
I don't.
Fuck off. Or do you think they're just going to make a fixed version of it, where they'll just like make it a 3/3, and just be like, this is Grick Rhymes, Steadfast Pilgrim or something. I don't know.
Let's say they call it Grick Rhymes.
Yeah, Grick
a different named card.
This is Grick Rhymes. He's from a plane called the Dorking Wed. He is an entirely unique character with his son Baal.
So what I think they're actually going to do is if it does become a widely played card in Legacy, which I suspect it might, because that Humans deck looks pretty legit. Like, I don't think it's going to break Legacy, but I think it's going to, see some play. What I think they'll do is, I think they'll reprint an identical card with a different name, probably into a supplemental set, probably a Commander deck, in all honesty, or some form of conspiracy, something like that. And basically then errata it, so the Rick Grimes character
does no longer exist.
Basically acts like the Godzilla card, so there's like a little bit of tiny imaginary text saying this is actually a new card name and this is just a cover for it.
That is just such a horrific fix, though, right?
Yeah, it is. It's terrible. It's a horrible fix.
Yeah, time to go around the entire motorway to avoid the fucking puddle. Like, you know what? You know what they could have done? They could have just not been Monday grabbing bastards and just not done this. Or just make them silver bordered. This was the simplest goddamn thing they could have done. Just make the thing silver bordered. You make it silver bordered, no one gets to play in any of your legacy messages, and no one gets annoyed at the fact that it's broken. At the fact that it's that it's a random IP that's suddenly getting a secret lair version, but no one particularly gets angry really. You don't have to come dead to people every single day, because Magic's been dying since the 90s, let's not forget. But still, like there's just little things they could have.
They could have also just given them the Godzilla treatment. Before printing the replacement.
I agree. Yeah. This is I've already seen people who have made alters these, which are just these cards, but with a different name and a different artwork, and they work so much better. And I'm like, this should have just been it. Like, I think who's the leader of the Alverson Church down on Innistrad, the white card.
Oh, something the Luminarch.
Anyway, him. People have just said, why is he not just the Rick Grimes card? And and I'm like, no, I agree. I'm
sure. I'm sure if you dig like deep enough, you can find really good cards for both of them. But like, I'm not gonna lie, this got me kind of down. Like, I'm normally a very positive person about Magic. I like talking about Magic. I like playing Magic. I'm excited when things come up, and this got me down. Like, I've always kind of wanted to get into Legacy and start playing, because I love playing Eternal formats. I love playing like that type of Magic, and this kind of put me off if this is what legacy and stuff like that is going to be like for now. And what makes me even more worried is I can see them starting to do like a tie-in secret lair with Modern Masters where they reprint something into Modern through a secret lair.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
The-
And I'm just slightly worried about everything that's going to come forward.
This is what I've been trying to say for about a year now, ever since the first lot of secret lairs came about, where I was somewhat still optimistic about secret lairs at the beginning, but I said very early on I was worried about this just becoming a product for the privileged few. And I feel like this has been the product of Secret Lair to finally show people beyond just the cynicism that I was throwing out that this was absolutely it. Here is a section of time where not only are we printing fetch lands again, but this time in a 200 odd pound box, but also here are cards that are legal in a format. You can only get them here, and you have to get them here, and you've only got a week. And I'm sat there going, this is Magic for the privileged few. And Magic is a game of pay to win. And I've never defended it against that. I've always been very open. Whenever friends of mine have always said, you play a pay to win game, I'm like, yeah, I do. But I at least am able to have fun with it without the pay to win attitude. I can still go and play Commander with my friends. I can still go and do that. If I want to go and play Modern, I can. I just know that I'm not going to do the best, and that's fine. But suddenly this is starting to prove to me that it's not just we're printing cards because it's fun. This is now we are printing cards specifically because it makes us money. That this is now not this is a fun card that everyone can play with. It's give us money, you get the good card. And that makes me realize more and more how I've been right for the last 4 years about it being a pay-to-win format, and it's becoming more and more pay-to-win every single year. And one day, the straw is going to break the camel's back. Something is going to happen, and Wizards are going to really step over the line. And they've almost done it now. This is it. This is we've gotten so close to just breaking trust from the player base. And I think the professor put it really at the best when he was talking about this. And he said, and I will echo this statement: if you're not happy with Wizards of the Coast, then don't buy Magic cards. That's the only way they'll learn.
Completely. Like I will. We can sit here and disagree about whether Magic is a pay-to-win game or not, because I do actually disagree with you. I don't think it's a pay-to-win game. I think it's a pay-to-play game. But
yeah, maybe it's.
I agree.
Who knows?
But that's not the point right now. Like I agree. Like I worry about where this will go. I am. And a part of that worry is actually the D&D set. I know we joked about it, but I'm actually, as a whole, I'm actually not opposed to like a D&D set existing in like either like a conspiracy idea or maybe like
an unstable,
unstable set.
Sword and Dungeons and Dragons was a nice little reference in an unset.
Yeah, and like I'm even not opposed to like an entire set thing, but like to put it into standard, to make it part of your game, to make it part of like the solid lore, and you're basically they're setting a precedent with these two sets of saying Magic is. It feels to me like Magic is going to lose its identity, and that's really worrying for me. I don't care about the Magic story. I know there are people who do, but I'm not one. But I care about the flavor of the set. Like that's what keeps me in Magic. Like it's a mechanically interesting game, but it's also just like the feel of it.
Every plane feels different, but has the certain things that keep them all grounded and leveled together.
Yeah,
they've all got planeswalkers. They've all got similar tribes, and they've all got goblins and zombies and hydras and dragons. And yeah, that's the generic fantasy stuff, but Wizards have managed to make it into its own with Magic. And you can see all these references. And I think the thing that worries me, and the thing that's kind of upset me about it really, is there have been some mechanics recently and some sets recently and sets coming up that, like you say, completely break that. So you look at something like Zendikar Rising, we've not even talked about the party mechanic, which has gone absolutely nowhere because no one asked for it and no one wanted it. Here is this mechanic that forces a D&D precedent upon you. And it's kind of this strange one because D&D is supposed to be played with 4 people in those 4 roles, and it never is. Because it turns out people don't like, in a game all about choice, to be pushed into one area. That's why I'm so excited about Defenders of the New Century, which is a brand new role-playing game that's coming out in a few months, because that's entirely classless. And stuff like, sorry, weird shill there, I've realized. Apologies. But yeah, to suddenly force that idea down into Magic and in a Zendikar set felt really weird to me. Where I'm like, why have we got these forced D&D parties suddenly appearing in Zendikar of all places? Or it's the adventure set. Is it though? Because Zendikar's not been the adventure set since the first one.
Like, I really liked the party mechanic. I thought it was really cool. It had kind of like an Exodia kind of vibe where, oh, I'm gonna, get my warrior. Oh, and I've drawn my wizard, and it's all coming together in like a big combo. I think what put the downer on it was just the fact that there was no payoff. Like, you've got to have 4 creatures on the battlefield. They've got to be specific types. That's really hard to do. And then there's no payoff. It was designed poorly, and I think that's what put the actual nail in the coffin. It's just the fact that it's a bad mechanic.
It's the fact that it's a mechanic it's a mechanic that everyone's forgotten about already. Landfall has walked in and taken the entire spotlight away from it, and no one is thinking about party particularly. And this is again gets me worried about the D&D set, where D&D has got its very right. I'm going to say something potentially controversial here, because I'm aware that D&D is the most popular role-playing game in the world, and it kind of has a monopoly on role-playing games, kind of. I'm going to say a very controversial thing here. D&D doesn't have an identity.
You heard it here, folks. D&D, crap game.
It kind of is. Well, it's fine. It's baby's first role-playing game, and unfortunately there's better ones out there, but that's me getting my role-playing game snoot hat on. It doesn't have an identity. Because what is its identity?
It has books which it produces, which are in the same world, called like Never.
But at the same time, when you think about D&D, and people are, okay, well, name me stuff about D&D. Oh, wizards and warlocks and warriors and paladins and dragons, and I'm like, generic fantasy stuff. What do you have in D&D that makes this different, that changes it, that makes it interesting, that's not just generic things? We've got the occasional like unique monster. Okay, well, such as what, like beholders? And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine, but you can't base you can't sell an entire world and identity on just 1 or 2 new creatures. You just can't.
I mean, I think the same is true of Magic, right? Like, what's Magic? It's goblins and wizards and whatever. But Magic doesn't feel like that.
Magic works way better because Magic itself plays itself off super well on its places. It because it's all about the planes, it goes super hard into its places. It goes, here are these amazing, very detailed like cards based around this entire plane, which fleshes our planes out really, really hard. I can give you some quite detailed and intricate lore about places like Innistrad, because even though that's the generic Gothic one, they made it their own, and they really fleshed it out with characters and places and everything. And I mean, Zendikar's a really good example as well. It's super fleshed out. It's this unique place to them. So even though you can say, yeah, it's got, all these generic, all this stuff, it's the same as saying, well, Lord of the Rings is generic because it's just got goblins and orcs and wizards and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but that makes itself work because it makes itself unique with its world. And I'd argue D&D doesn't do that. And so D&D being added into Magic just feels like they're going synergy because we're the same company. rather than this is going to make Magic better.
Oh, I buy that.
I actually agree with Hugh, but probably not for the reason why he's hoping for.
I'll take anything at this point.
So I actually agree with you. I kind of agree with Sam was saying, like, the actual bare bolts stuff of Magic is very generic. It's very Tolkien-esque. You have your giants, you have your elves, you have your goblins. But Hugh's right. It's like the planes that makes Magic stand out. Like, you're right. You have your Innistrad, you have your Zendikar, you have, like, even Dominaria, which is...
They fleshed it out enough to make it interesting.
But then you do get the more interesting stuff. You get Ravnica. Like, Ravnica's one of everybody's favorite planes. New Phyrexia, exactly. Like, it's a completely new thing. And do you know what I think the symptom of why people like this is?
Go on.
Ask people about what their favorite basic land is. And it'll tell you an awful lot about them.
Yeah, everyone will have an answer, because I was sat there and I'm like, people don't have an answer to that, and I just went, Hugh, you know, it's the unstable plains. That's your favorite art. You literally have an answer for this, mate. And I'm like, yeah, I do. It's the unstable plains. Because it's got such a gladiator-esque look to it, this giant flowing field of wheat, and I'm like, oh, that's a plains to me. It's so good.
Mine are the Rebecca Gay basic lands from the Commander decks. But like lots of people will tell you, it's like the hexagons, the hexagon planes from like New Phyrexia and stuff like that, or the gleaming metal and stuff like that. Or they might tell you it's the cityscapes, like in Ravnica. Like I was talking to one of Ellie's friends.
Yeah, the Hedrons.
Yeah, the bucket island. Exactly. Or hell, I'm even particularly susceptible to the Bolas Horn lands from Armenket. I kind of agree with you that D&D, technically D&D does have a identity. You have stuff like Waterdeep and lots of other places in there, and you have like the in fact the most interesting part of D&D does tend to be like it's I'm not even sure what they call them, like the levels. Like you have like the Underdark and the Feywild and stuff like that. The actual middle fantasy bit is incredibly generic.
But do people play that anymore? Because I'd argue a lot of D&D isn't D&D. Like most D&D is homebrews now. Most D&D are homebrews. Most D&D is D&D nowadays is just a rules based system with some creatures you can add into it, and that doesn't work to me, because then it is just I'm a wizard, I'm a soldier, I'm a I'll pull it back to Magic and say that I don't think, and this is a really weird one, it's a weird way to say this, but I don't think D&D has got enough character to be its own Magic the Gathering plane.
I mean, this is what Alan Forsyth is trying to do to the game. Because when he had this Walking Dead kind of reparations video, he went on and he said, we're trying to separate the Magic IP from the game. Kind of like how Hugh was talking about in D&D, you've got the game system and then you've got all the worlds that the system feeds into. So maybe that's why it's so upsetting to see a Magic the Gathering game being completely separated from the Magic the Gathering worlds, the IPs of the game.
Because without the world, what is Magic but just another card game?
Yeah.
And I completely agree. And like I'd argue that like this works a lot better, because you're right, like D&D kind of has become divorced from its own rule set. And once again, you're right, because like it's so people can tell their own stories, right? It's some generic rules for people to build their own world around.
It is, and I've said this, and I don't mean this disparagingly when I say it is baby's first role-playing game, in that it's an easy role-playing system to get into. Because for the most part, all you need to really worry about is what are the numbers that you have next to your abilities, what kind of weapon are you using, how much damage does it do, and do you roll big numbers on your 20? Like, that's about it. You don't really have to think about much else.
But that's absolutely fine.
No.
Because it allows the DM to go out there and create their own world. And this is actually why the Magic the Gathering supplement books for D&D have been so popular. because you can. It makes perfect sense for you to step into the world of Magic from D&D. I would argue it doesn't make sense for you to step from the world into the world of D&D while playing Magic, because Magic does have such a tight identity.
I'm going to try not to just D&D bash the entire time. I really will. But I will say I think any role-playing game has the ability to be disconnected from its world and become whatever you want it to be. I feel like D&D has managed it more than any other one for two reasons. Number one, it was the first, and number two, it's now got a monopoly. D&D has managed to convince the entire world that a role-playing book should cost £40, despite the fact that the amount of work that goes into one of those books surely is worth more than that. I mean, art books, for God's sake, cost 40 quid, and not only is a player's guide full of artwork for all of the different players and characters and all that sort of thing, but it also has an entire rules-based system included within it. So I'd argue that any role-playing system could do that. I really could. The reason why D&D's done it is because it has come first. And I do genuinely think that D&D, it's simple. You can just play it. That's why everyone gets into it first. But at the same time, it's nowhere near the exciting worlds and the exciting ideas that I want in Magic the Gathering. It isn't. And I know that's kind of a weird one because, I'm not particularly invested in the Magic storyline, but I really like reading about the planes. I love looking at that sort of stuff. I loved reading about, what's happened to Zendikar now after the Eldrazi have gone. That genuinely interested me because I'm like, what did happen? Actually, genuinely, what's happened on this plane that I do kind of have an interest in? What's going to happen? I'm super interested to see what the hell's going to happen on Innistrad. Why the heck have we got 2 Innistrad blocks coming out? Stuff like that. I don't think D&D's got it enough to be able to... D&D's world has not got enough of an identity to stick itself into Magic the Gathering. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's good. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm just harping on at this thing because I'm just expecting the worst. But this is what I currently believe.
I completely agree. I'm hoping for the best, expecting the worst. And I think I'm going to have to do that a lot nowadays because we are going through a period of high innovation with not only just in mechanics of sets, but also how they present the sets, what they can even call a set, how they sell the booster packs and stuff like that. Well, we haven't even talked about the set booster packs and stuff that they've introduced. And
that was a whole thing.
That was a whole thing.
There are lots of things that we could talk about, but at this point we've been talking for over an hour. We're all kind of starting to feel a little bit down because we've all just we've just spent the last hour bashing Wizards of the Coast and and Magic and D&D. Well, just Wizards of the Coast in general because Magic the Gathering and D&D.
Yeah.
And so we'll probably wrap it up there. We'll end on the optimistic note that hopefully everything gets better.
I really hope there's a Beholder legendary creature.
Maybe.
I mean, I kind of do as well. That's got to be a 5-color commander.
Of course there will be. We'll end. I mean, we'll end on the note of saying Standard's had enough bans that hopefully that thing is now hopefully in calm. Modern's pretty good right now. Legacy is a bit broken, but hopefully we can sort that out. Well, like you say, expect the worst, but hope for the best. All we can do is walk forward with hope in these uncertain times. And on that note, we will say goodbye. So thank you ever so much for listening, everyone. Do continue to stay safe in these troubling times. And sorry we've been gone so long.
Yeah, hopefully it won't be this long between the.
We did have one previously recorded, but the audio was so awful that that here we are 4 months later.
Nah, not your fault, man. That was my fault.
Nah, don't worry about it. Either which way. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.